I'm photographer David duChemin, and this is Vision is Better, a sometimes weekly podcast about the craft and art of photography. Welcome here. Hey, welcome to episode 42 of Vision is Better. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about humanitarian photography, because I got a question recently from Stephen Reichert, who does a really interesting thing online. He has something called Living Vertical, and he's a photographer and an outdoorsman, a rock climber, who's also type 1 diabetic, and he's looking to change the world for people facing challenges like type 1 diabetes. He and I spoke recently, and one of the questions he asked me was, David, how did you get into humanitarian photography? How did you get your first gig? And I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible, because I've got a lot of ideas about this, and I've got two sermons that I want to preach about this. The first sermon I want to preach is, if you're going to get into this field, or any field, you need to understand it. You need to know what your clients, your eventual clients, want, what they need, and those pain points, the things that they want and need that they don't have and are going to look to you to provide. That's where you can provide value. And if you understand that, and it's multifaceted. It's not, I need photographs. It's many things. It's, we need storytelling. We need a photographer who's sensitive on the field, possibly someone who speaks multiple languages, though not necessarily. Someone definitely who has experience, someone who has the diplomatic skills to work with a variety of people in a variety of different cultures so as not to jeopardize the relationships that they've built. Someone who doesn't need hand-holding and babysitting. They're looking for a lot of things for you. If you're going to provide value for them, you need to be able to address these things. So that's the first thing. Don't go into humanitarian photography thinking that there's a bunch of really needy organizations out there that are wringing their hands going, oh, where do we find photographers? First of all, many of them don't know they need photographers. Secondly, they have hundreds of people saying, we really want to work for you. I'm 17 years old and I got my new camera and I want to photograph for you. And listen, I'm not mocking the 17-year-old with the camera and the passion to do this. What I'm saying is there are a lot of people that are hammering on the doors of NGOs and CBOs and development agencies saying, we want to photograph for you. Understand it's not so simple as just showing up, and if you build it, they will come, because you're asking a lot of an organization when you show up at their doorstep and say, send me to the field to photograph for you. Even if you're saying, send me for free, because it's still going to cost them. It's going to cost them someone to babysit you. It's going to cost them a community liaison officer of some sort. It's going to cost them someone to translate. And that person may be the same person, but to pull them off the field for a week or two just to babysit you and get this done is a big time commitment, and they're already stretched thin. So you got to know that. Second thing you got to know is that not every pocket is willing to pay for a photographer. They might be willing to pay for a storyteller. They might be willing to pay for someone who can create multimedia stuff that will go onto YouTube and doesn't need a big media buy or print purchase. So if you can get creative about this stuff, you might be able to get in there. If the question is, how did I get my first gig? I did some NGO stuff on my own dime. I fundraised among friends to go to Ethiopia. I went and did an assignment in Haiti for a client that was kind of an out of the blue thing. And that on its own is a relational thing that happened. It was someone that I knew and they wanted me to do this. And then they found out I did photography, and it was kind of a big ball of wax. Like so much of this business is, it's relational, and you got to make contacts, and you got to find out who the players are, and you've got to find out what their needs are. So if you can do that, here's my next thought. Don't be afraid of the guys that are going to say, you can't work for free. There are no police officers out there, but there are a lot of voices out there that say, don't work for free. Listen, I will work for free anytime I damn well please, but it will be on my terms. It will not be on the terms of a client that calls and says, you know, we really love your stuff, but we can't pay you, or worse, we can pay you with exposure, which usually means we can't pay you. Or listening to another photographer bitch and gripe because his business model sucks and he thinks he can't afford me to go and work for free. That's a very short-sighted business model that depends on my relationship with other clients, not their relationship with their potential clients. So I'm not saying don't be compassionate to the photographer down the street who needs to make a living. I'm just saying their reaction to you saying you want to work for free probably has more to do with their shitty business model than it does with the strength of your willingness to go and do compassionate work. Now, I'm talking specifically about the humanitarian space. my thoughts may change on something that's more commercial, but everyone has interns, everyone pays their dues, everyone has a place where they start and they suck. And if you're able to find that place and you can do it for free on your terms, do it. If it's not on your terms, if it's some magazine calling up and saying, we want you to work for us, or we want to use your images, but we can't pay, we can give you exposure, then it's up to you. But generally my answer is no. I'm sidetracking a little. How did I get the first gig? I wrote stuff on my blog. I put photographs up. I created, I shared, and all of the other efforts, the business cards and the brochures and all of that, eventually paid very low return on investment. What has always paid very high return on investment is great content, or at least relevant, passionate content. Whether it's great or not is up to the person reading it, but relevant, passionate content that connects with people in the industry that I want to be working in. If you want to work in comedy and doing headshots for comedians, you better get to know comedians and comedy, and you better go where they are, and you better write about stuff they care about, because that is the only way that they're going to find out about you and find you relevant. And it's probably the only way you're going to be able to provide them value, because it's the only way you're going to know what other headshots are out there for comedians, what is trending, what's old and hack, and what's new and fresh. So you've got to know your industry. If you were to ask me right now, David, what would you do if you wanted to get into humanitarian photography? I would tell you what I'm doing to get now into conservation photography, which is meeting the people that are the players, studying the issues, looking at the work that's being done, and beginning to shift my body of work from one focus to another focus. I am at the very beginnings of that transition. It would be very presumptuous of me just to print business cards and say, I am now a conservation photographer. I will be a conservation photographer when someone else calls me that, and when the work that I'm doing is reflective of that. For now, I'm a bit of a dilettante. I'm learning, I'm studying, I'm hustling in terms of meeting the people and building the relationships. If it never goes anywhere, it never goes anywhere. That's the nature of business, but you got to try. And I'm passionate enough about the humanitarian issue. I'm passionate enough about conservation as the single greatest humanitarian task of our generation. So that's one of the reasons I want to get into it. Aside from my love for, bears and cuddly things, I desperately want to leave this world a place that's better than when I arrived, and that's an uphill battle. So that propels me to find the people in this space, to find out what's valuable to them, to find out where they're itching, so that I can begin to consider where I might scratch those particular itches. That's how you get into it. You don't do it by being clever. You don't do it by sending out mailings. Those things might happen down the line, but the first thing you got to do is figure out your audience and meet them and ask them questions. And from there, your creating and your sharing begins to take place. That's the value of social media. But if you're all over the map, if nobody knows exactly what you do or why you do it, you're not going to be as attractive to a potential ad executive who's looking for someone who knows what they're doing, who's passionate about it, and who's got the work to back it up. And that's ultimately the most important thing. Your work will not sell itself, but if you're trying to sell yourself and you don't have the work, you're at a huge disadvantage. Anyway, I hope this is helpful to you. I realize the last few things have been a little businessy and they've been a little ranty, but I'm in a businessy, ranty kind of mood these days. So leave comments if you got comments about this stuff. I want to be as engaged and as open and as available to you as I possibly can, either through my blog at davidduchemin.com or here on the YouTube Vision is Better channel. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember, gear is good, but vision is better. We'll see you next time.